In the tense shadow of the Cold War, the Soviet Union had surged ahead with one stunning milestone after another. Sputnik in 1957, Yuri Gagarin's orbit in 1961, and the first spacewalk in 1965. American prestige lay in ruins. President John F. Kennedy, desperate to reclaim dominance, stood before Congress on May 25, 1961, and pledged that the United States would land a man on the moon and return him safely before the decade was out. Behind closed doors at NASA, however, engineers and administrators already knew the promise was impossible. The technology simply did not exist. Radiation belts, navigation limits, and computer weakness made success statistically negligible, less than a 0.0017% chance. Rather than admit defeat, NASA's leaders made a fateful choice. They would stage the entire endeavor as the ultimate propaganda weapon. Faking the landings would prove far easier and cheaper than real success. It would avoid national humiliation, guarantee billions in continued funding, and divert public attention from the escalating nightmare in Vietnam. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Astronauts would be launched into low Earth orbit, or in some cases never leave the ground at all. Pre-recorded footage, studio sets, and carefully manipulated radio signals would create the illusion of journeys to the moon. The Soviets, who tracked every launch with their own radar, quickly realized the signals were not coming from lunar distances, but they were silenced through quiet blackmail and mutual understanding. Expose the Americans, and their own space program would lose its mystique. No independent verification would ever be allowed. Thus began the greatest deception in human history. Every subsequent milestone from Apollo 1 through Apollo 17 was scripted not in space, but on Earth. The world watched in awe as grainy television images showed men walking on another world, never suspecting that every frame had been manufactured in secret studios and that no human being had ever escaped low Earth orbit. By early 1968, NASA faced a crisis of confidence. Their internal simulations had confirmed the lunar landing was technically unachievable. In desperation, agency officials approached the one man on Earth capable of creating perfect cinematic illusion. Stanley Kubrick, fresh from completing his masterpiece 2001, A Space Odyssey. Kubrick, already steeped in the mechanics of zero-gravity effects, slow-motion photography, and massive studio sets, was offered unlimited resources and total secrecy. He accepted, bringing with him the expertise of Walt Disney Studios for additional special effects support. Under Kubrick's direction, vast sound stages were constructed in remote desert locations and converted aircraft hangars. Harnesses, trampolines, and parabolic flight aircraft provided brief moments of weightlessness that could be stitched together. Slow-motion cameras, black backdrops, and carefully positioned artificial lights recreated the lunar surface down to the smallest crater. Footage for all 6 planned landings was shot months or even years in advance. When the time came for each mission, these reels would be broadcast as live transmissions, with radio delays artificially inserted to simulate the 250,000-mile distance. Astronauts either remained safely in low Earth orbit or never left the launch complex. Their voices were dubbed over the pre-recorded visuals. The pact was sealed with ironclad oaths and the understanding that exposure meant ruin for everyone involved. Kubrick's genius transformed an impossible dream into the most convincing television spectacle ever produced, ensuring that billions of viewers would never question the reality unfolding before their eyes. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 lifted off amid global fanfare. In reality, the astronauts were placed in low Earth orbit while pre-recorded studio footage began rolling. Neil Armstrong's famous first step was captured not by a camera on the lunar surface, but by a remote-controlled rig on a Hollywood set. The question of who positioned the camera was never answered because no one on the moon existed to do it. The American flag rippled and waved for minutes after planting, impossible in the vacuum because hidden studio fans provided the breeze. Footprints appeared impossibly sharp and preserved, as though the dust contained moisture that lunar regolith never possessed. Across the 6 landings, identical anomalies repeated. The lunar module descent engine, powerful enough to move 17 tons, left no blast crater and scattered no dust, because no engine ever fired on the moon. The ascent stage produced no visible flame or exhaust in the vacuum, and the rover's wheels threw up no dust plumes despite the total absence of atmosphere. Hammer and feather drops were carefully choreographed on Earth to mimic lunar gravity. Meanwhile, astronauts in low Earth orbit or on the ground performed their lines, their weightlessness faked through harnesses, trampolines, and short parabolic flights aboard the Vomit Comet. Every broadcast was pre-taped or fed from Earth studios with signals delayed to simulate the lunar lag. By December 1972, when Apollo 17 returned, the deception was complete. 6 flags stood on a world no human had ever touched. 6 crews had become national heroes, and the Soviet Union remained publicly silent while privately acknowledging the fraud. The Cold War had been won on a sound stage. The official NASA archive itself betrays the hoax in thousands of still images and hours of film. Crosshairs etched into the camera lenses appear behind rocks and equipment, clear evidence of composite pasting. Photos were taken at an implausible rate, one every 50 seconds for 1960s film technology, yet every frame is perfectly exposed. No stars appear in any lunar sky, despite the airless vacuum. Instead, a seamless black backdrop was used. Shadows fall at impossible angles, and multiple hot spots reveal the presence of several studio lights rather than a single distant sun. Backgrounds repeat identically in photographs supposedly taken miles apart, proving a single painted cyclorama was reused. C-shaped markings, studio prop labels, appear on rocks and soil. In the live Apollo 11 broadcast, a Coca-Cola bottle rolls visibly across the frame before being edited out. Reflections in helmet visors reveal skeleton-like dummy figures used for lighting tests. Earth, when shown, appears unnaturally bright and pure white with no atmospheric distortion, while the position and brightness of Venus are catastrophically wrong. The hammer and feather demonstration and rover movements display dust behavior that matches Earth gravity, not the moon's. These were not accidents or anomalies. They were the inevitable slips of a massive studio production rushed to meet broadcast deadlines, forever preserved as the only evidence the public would ever see. The lunar environment itself made any real landing impossible. The Van Allen radiation belts, combined with galactic cosmic rays and solar flares, would have killed the astronauts or fogged every frame of film. Apollo 16 flew directly through a major solar flare with no measurable effect. Daytime lunar surface temperatures reached 250 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt camera film and destroy equipment, yet nothing was damaged. Spacesuit air conditioning systems could not function in a vacuum, yet the astronauts remained comfortable. The 1960s computers guiding the missions possessed less power than a modern pocket calculator and could never have performed the required navigation or real-time corrections. Radio and radar technology of the era lacked the precision for 250,000-mile guidance. Saturn V blueprints were deliberately destroyed after the program ended to conceal the fact that the rocket's second stage produced no visible exhaust in vacuum. The lunar module left no depression in the dust despite its weight, while nearby footprints remained perfectly formed. These contradictions were not oversights. They were the physical proof that no human machinery ever operated beyond low Earth orbit. Live transmissions contained fatal flaws. Radio delays measured only half a second instead of the required 2.5 seconds. Parkes Observatory in Australia, promoted as the primary receiver, was mysteriously stood down at the last moment. Clearer signals arrived when the moon was on the opposite side of Earth. proof the feed originated locally. Original Apollo 11 telemetry tapes and high-resolution video were lost within years. Blueprints, design documents, and development records for critical hardware vanished. 10 astronauts and key civilians connected to the program died under suspicious circumstances in the years following. Plane crashes, sudden illnesses, mysterious accidents, ensuring permanent silence. At post-flight press conferences, the heroes appeared exhausted, evasive, and guilty, avoiding eye contact and giving wooden answers. Bart Sibrel's ambushes with Bibles produced visible panic. Buzz Aldrin's physical reaction to one confrontation spoke louder than any denial. With the moon hoax complete, NASA simply continued the deception. No manned mission ever again attempted to leave low Earth orbit. The Space Shuttle and all subsequent programs remained confined to the same safe altitude. Moon rocks were manufactured in Earth laboratories or collected from Antarctic meteorites. Laser retroreflectors supposedly placed on the lunar surface were either faked or placed by unmanned Soviet probes whose data was later co-opted. Modern orbiter photographs of landing sites were digitally altered or taken of Earth-based replicas. The deception reached its most chilling peak on January 28, 1986, with the Space Shuttle Challenger. In reality, no human being was aboard the shuttle at all. What the world watched as a catastrophic explosion was nothing more than carefully staged footage created to perpetuate the illusion of brave deep space travel while permanently silencing any remaining internal doubts about the unbreakable low Earth orbit barrier. The 7 crew members, Francis Richard Scobie, Michael J. Smith, Judith A. Resnick, Ellison S. Onizuka, Ronald E. McNair, Gregory B. Jarvis, and Sharon Christa McAuliffe, never died that day. They simply walked away from NASA and resumed their lives openly, sometimes under the exact same names, sometimes as twins or close family members whose resemblance was so perfect that the switch required no disguise whatsoever. Today, these same individuals can be tracked down living in plain sight. Richard Scobie as the CEO of a Chicago marketing firm called Cows and Trees, Judith Resnick as the Arthur Lyman Professor of Law at Yale Law School, Sharon A. McAuliffe as an adjunct professor at Syracuse University College of Law, Michael J. Smith continuing under his unchanged name, and Ronald McNair and Ellison Onizuka living as their own brothers, Carl and Claude, whose identical eyebrows, eyes, crow's feet, noses, and hair partings match perfectly in every public photograph. Gregory Jarvis likewise reappeared through the same doppelganger network. The absence of any Social Security death records for all 7, combined with side-by-side facial comparisons that defy statistical probability, proves beyond any doubt that NASA faked the entire disaster, allowing its heroes to thrive in new professions while the world continued to believe the lie. Astronauts continued to confess through body language and carefully worded interviews. Public polls in multiple countries consistently showed 6 to 28% of citizens already suspected the truth. Bill Kaysing's 1976 book, We Never Went to the Moon, America's $30 billion swindle, became an underground Bible, documenting the swindle with irrefutable logic. The lie had become self-perpetuating, each new generation of NASA employees inheriting the secret along with the funding. The International Space Station is the most elaborate stage yet constructed. All footage is produced on Earth using wire harnesses, underwater neutral buoyancy labs, green screens, and CGI. Hair floats unnaturally rigid or fails to move as true zero-gravity demands. Objects are visibly tugged by invisible wires. Bubbles appear in space water experiments when footage is slowed. Astronauts have been caught walking on uneven surfaces. Floating crew members have been edited in and out, and live streams show zero communication lag despite orbital distances. China's Tiangong station reveals the same tricks. Water that refuses to float freely. Hair that defies microgravity physics. Mars photographs released by NASA are colorized images taken on Devon Island in Canada with the same rock formations and lighting. Every deep space probe image, every rover transmission, every interstellar vista is computer generated. The entire space program beyond basic low Earth orbit is now a fully simulated reality, populated by actors and brief parabolic flight trainees. Astronauts still display the same guilty demeanor, avoiding detailed questions and delivering scripted answers. Today, in 2026, the deception continues exactly as it began in 1961. No human has ever left low Earth orbit. The moon landings, the ISS, the Mars missions, all of it remains the most successful and longest-running hoax in human history, sustained by the same motives of power, money, and control that birthed it more than 6 decades ago. The evidence has always been there for those willing to see it. The truth is that humanity never went to the moon. We never left the cradle of Earth, and the greatest show in history is still playing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this and would like to see more, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the bell so you are notified when a new video is dropped. Until next time, uncover the truth and question the past.